Hi everyone, welcome back to Michelle Reads and Vlogs, and today we are doing our part 2 new fantasy releases coming up for this spring. So the reason why this had to go into 2 parts was because there were just so many books to film and put into one video. So part 1 was already filmed and uploaded last week. I will put a link to it and down in the description, so go and check that out after this if you've not done so already. And I did split it completely in time, so part 1 was from the beginning of spring, which is the 20th of March through to April. Part 2 today, we are going to be doing May through to the beginning of June. June 20th is the official end of spring. So May and June today, let's have a look. I think I am more excited for part 2 than I was for part 1. I think every book here, there are 9 books we're going to talk about today, they're all massive hits. So let's get into them. So on the 9th of May, we have The Silence Factory by Bridget Collins. The UK cover artwork for this looks incredible. I'm going to pop a picture up wherever. This is an historical fantasy. So it's one of those books that it seems like it's going to be set in the real world, but it's going to have this fantastical element brought in. And what we have here is kind of 2 timelines. I think it's going to be one timeline, then the next, but I'm not sure. It could be dual, kind of constantly going between the 2. I'm not sure. I've not actually read the book yet. And we have this magical rare spider that spins this silk. And what they do is they figure out that if they put this thread that this magical spider makes into kind of silk as a whole, as a larger piece of fabric, it gives the wearer this magical ability to drown out the noise of the outside world. So for the wearer of the fabric, they feel this immense calm, all of their anxiety disappears, and it's magical for them. But the issue is that for the people on the other side of the silk, they hear these kind of eerie murmurs constantly, and the more, like, the closer in proximity they are and the more that they experience this, the worse their symptoms get. So it could be that for some people it's just a few headaches that they get, very minor, then it goes on to migraines, and for some people they completely go mad, they get madness. So kind of the kind of fantastical element of this sounds really intriguing. It's quite complicated to read this as a summary because they've got the whole character story going on as well. So in 1820 we've got this couple, I think they're called Sophie and James, or Sophia, I can't quite remember. They go to this very remote Greek island to find this spider, and that kind of starts off the threads that can go into this silk. So fast forward a few centuries? Decades? Does it say centuries? Let me just check the synopsis. I don't know how far later we're going. If it's centuries, obviously it might be current time. I'm not sure, but it's definitely historical fantasy, so I kind of assumed it was just going to be a few years later, but I guess we'll find out when we read the book. So years later, what we have is the owner of the silk factory. I think he is Edward, and his daughter is actually deaf. So they bring in an audiologist called Henry, and I think the story is really going to focus around Henry kind of getting lost in this world as he's trying to help the daughter to overcome her deafness. I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know if that's a part of obviously the silk, and if it's all to do with the proximity. I guess we'll figure out. There's a lot of questions here. So as he's there and he's trying to help the family and help the daughter, he basically gets kind of pulled in to the household as a whole and uncovering the secrets of their past and the darker side of the silk making industry. So as I said, it sounds quite complicated. There is a lot going on, but I think that Bridget Collins is obviously a well-renowned author. This has got some really good positive first reviews. I think this is just really well setting us up for the basis of the whole story. Because if you just kind of focus on the fantastical element, we're not going to know anything about these characters, and I think it is going to be very character involved and character led. And I guess, like I said, it's a bit of a mystery as in terms of, well, why is this daughter deaf? Is it to do with the factory and the silk? Is there something with the history of the family and the original two characters? I'm going to guess there is, or else why have we got those included? But yeah, I'm eager to read this one and kind of just find out more. And as I said, the cover got me. It looks really good. Also on the 9th of May, we have got Can't Spell Treason Without T by Rebecca Thorne. This is going to be a bit of a fantasy romance. It's sapphic, and I think, or I don't know if this is going to kind of be a new cozy fantasy. So it gives me a lot of Legends and Lattes vibes, but I'm not sure if it's going to be a little bit less cozy than Legends and Lattes, if it's going to be a little bit more kind of plot driven with more going on. So we've got these two female characters. The one, Kianthe, she is one of the best mages in the entire world, if not the best. And then we've got our other character, Rhaena, and she is a private guard to the Queen. They are both hardworking women, and they just want to go and open a cozy bookshop that serves tea. Is that not just every book lover's dream to do this? Which is why I get the kind of like Legends and Lattes vibes from it. But things aren't as easy for them as they should be, because Rhaena is one of the Queen's guards, and Kianthe is this powerful mage. So they're kind of more in demand. So basically the Queen's gonna like, they run away, they go and open this shop, or maybe not run away, but they go and open this tea shop, this bookshop. But the Queen basically throws a massive tantrum because she wants her private guard back. She wants Rhaena back. So this, as I said, it sounds really enjoyable. I think it's just that whole element of, don't we all just want to quit our jobs and surround everything with books and tea? It really appeals to me. So what I would also say about this is the cover for the UK version is much better than I think the cover for the US. To me, I think the cover for the US, I see where they're going for there. It looks kind of very cozy fantasy, but it doesn't look exciting. So if you're based in the US, I would not let the cover kind of dictate what you feel about this. For me, it ticks every box, and I am anticipating this one coming out. We then skip to the 14th of May when we have The Ministry of Time by Kaliane Bradley. This is a science fiction in terms of time travel and a bit of a romance. So what we have is a civil servant who is asked to do this job. She takes the contract and she only finds out what the job is afterwards. And the job is a part of being in the Ministry of Time, where she is tasked to look after a time traveller. So they are basically testing whether time travel is going to be kind of functional, if it's going to work, how it's going to affect the greater kind of realm of space-time travel. So it's a big job and a big kind of experiment that they're doing, I guess. And she is tasked with looking after this chap called Commander Gore, who was a part of Franklin's failed expedition to the Arctic. I think he died in the whole expedition. So he's like, why am I alive? And where am I? Because he is now in present time, in the modern day, has no idea what things like a washing machine are or Spotify. It's just like in a completely different world to what he's used to. We're also going to find some other figures from different parts of history. I don't know if they're going to be maybe looked after by different characters, because she's tasked with just looking after him. And I think it's meant to go into a bit of a romance. So we'll see how that goes, kind of romance between not just obviously being from different places, but different time periods. And yeah, I'm kind of intrigued by this one because I don't really know where it's going to go. You know, like that sounds all really exciting and really kind of interesting, but where's the plot going to go? Where's the story going to go, other than kind of a romance between the two and maybe kind of seeing some relationships with these other characters or these side characters? But what's actually going to happen in the rest of the plot? Or is that it? So I do think this one sounds good in terms of, as we say, science fiction. A lot of science fiction that I tend to listen to or read tends to be space science fiction. So the fact that this is based on Earth, and it's kind of got this bit of kind of history mixed in, but it's got the time travel element. I think sounds really good, and yeah, I'm really excited for this one. I realised in the last video, by the way, that I say the word excited so much, so I'm trying to think of different words, and yeah, I can't help it. I'm just very excited. It's just my genuine reaction. We then jump to the 23rd of May, where we've got a few books coming out this day. The first one is the next in the series of Greek mythological retellings by Jennifer Saint, and this one is Hera, and I am really interested for this one. The issue is I've not read any of the other Jennifer Saints, even though I own them, but I have read Stephen Fry's Greek mythology book, and Hera is talked about a lot in this because she is the sister of Zeus. This follows obviously more her because a lot of Greek mythology is focused on the males, so what we've got recently in a lot of these retellings is focused on the females. So she is the sister of Zeus, she is the daughter of Titan, and it starts with her and Zeus overthrowing Titan to become basically top of the gods. And obviously a lot of it is really ever focused on Zeus and what he got up to. So we are going to look at Hera, the fact that she is quite often painted in a negative light as kind of like the evil mother, the evil stepmother. So we're going to see more about her and kind of her as a more well-rounded character. So if you're still into your Greek retellings, because I feel like we're kind of coming out of the era of them now. We had a hell of a lot in a very short space of time, in just a few years. And I feel like maybe the fad of them is a little bit over. We hear a lot less of them talked about now online on the booktube community. But I think if this is your thing, Hera would be a good one to read. I think her as a character I am very interested in, so this will be a good one. So also on the 23rd of May, we're staying with our mythological retellings, but this time we have got something a little bit different, which is the Hindu retelling, Hindu mythology, which is Goddess of the River by Vaishnavi Patel. She released a previous book. I can't pronounce it. I'm going to put a picture of it up because I'm going to not do it justice at all. And I think this is just a little bit different because we've had so much Greek mythology. We've had obviously some Norse mythology, or quite a bit of Norse mythology. So to have some Hindu mythology mixed in is good. I like the diversity. And the Goddess of the River, she was Ganga. I think it's after the river. Yeah, that makes sense. So she was a god, and she had a curse placed on her to be put into a human form, and her job was to look after the banks of the river and to make sure that obviously everything was looked after and went well. So when she was put into this human form, she wed a king. So she had a mortal son who's a prince. So this is really following the story of her and of her mortal son, the prince. So without knowing the mythology, there's not much more to really say about it. What we know from the synopsis is that the prince is basically refusing to take the throne, and in what happens with him and his mother working together, they basically end up ending a war in this whole process. So yeah, it sounds different. It sounds like I'm going to learn a lot from this because I do not know a lot about Hindu mythology, so it's hopefully going to be an interesting read. Also on the 23rd of May, we have Moonstone by Laura Purcell, and this is one that I'm looking forward to. I actually tried to see if I could get an ARC copy of this, like a physical ARC, because I saw the cover and it's just gorgeous. So definitely drawn in by the cover, but also the story sounds good. So Laura Purcell has written adult books in the past. This is her first YA, so that's quite exciting for her. I've used that word exciting again. It's quite, oh no, I can't think of another word. I'm just going to stick with exciting. So it's her YA debut. It is a fantasy romance, and it is sapphic. So we follow Camille. She has been involved in a little bit of scandal, so she cannot be in polite society for a while. So she is sent away to her godmother, who lives out of the city in the countryside, and the godmother basically puts her in this little house in the woods to keep her out of the eyes of society, just whilst everything kind of calms down and the scandal is forgotten. But while she's there, she gets to know her godmother's daughter, Lucy. And Lucy has never left the countryside. She's never gone into the city. They get to know each other more. Obviously, it's sapphic, so we can exactly see where that's going to go. But the longer that Camille's there, she starts to notice strange things in the woodlands, such as massive scratch marks on the trees and things. And it turns out that the godmother has been holding a secret from Camille for a while. So you can probably see where this is going with the title Moonstone, scratches in the trees. It's not explicitly said, but I'm sure you can figure out the fantasy element there. So on the 28th of May, we've got the next book by S.T. Gibson, and this is Evocation. This is going to be the first in a new adult fantasy series that she has going on. It is going to be a fantasy romance, and it is a queer romance as well. So in this, we follow our main character, David. As a teenager, he was a psychic prodigy and had these brilliant skills. We fast forward to his 30s, where he is happily living his life, doing his psychic work on the side. But what happens is the devil comes to collect on a really old deal that he must pay, and he is a bit lost. He doesn't really know what to do, but death is going to loom around the corner for him if he doesn't figure this out. The only person he thinks he can turn to for help is his ex-boyfriend, Reese. The problem is that he and Reese nowadays are rivals. I would say academic rivals, but they're not in academia. They're rivals in the work that they do, and he wants nothing to do with him. He doesn't want to help. So the only way that David can get his help is through Reese's now wife, Moira. So as we go through the story, we know that this is going to go into what I think might be a true romance triangle. They're all going to kind of figure out their feelings for each other. It might be, it might not be, so don't take my word on that. So I guess we're going to see if David figures out how to get rid of this deal that he's got with the devil to make sure that he can stay alive, and what's going to happen with Reese and Moira along the way. Are they going to help him? Are they all going to fall for each other? Is someone going to fall out of love and someone fall in love? Who knows? Who knows? We'll find out. Now we're getting to the end of spring. It's sad even thinking about this when spring hasn't even technically started yet, but on the 20th of June we have Jade and Dragons by Amber Chen. And this is going to be a YA fantasy romance, and there are going to be dragons in this. I should have mentioned earlier as well, there's dragons in the Can't Smell Treason Without Tea as well. Brilliant. So I am immediately drawn in with anything with dragons nowadays. Not that it really mentions dragons in the plot. So it talks more about her as a person. She is 18 years old. She is training to become an engineer, just like her father was. And unfortunately, she has to, I don't know if she witnesses her murder, but she's just too late to stop the murder of her father. So to try and kind of figure out more about what's going on, she heads to the Engineers Guild, where she starts uncovering more about her father that he necessarily didn't want her to know, more about kind of the world in general that he didn't want her to know. She teams up with this young prince, tries to kind of get along with all of the rules and politics of this society, and at the end of it, she's going to have to make this choice between either doing what's right or doing what her father would have wanted. And yeah, I think that sounds good. I can't really say much more about it. That is the synopsis. I think it's one of those where it's quite typical YA, making big decisions, having to figure life out, learning that there more is to life. As I've said before, I am kind of slipping out of wanting to read a lot of YA, but I do think that this one sounds like it could be one that ticks the boxes for me. Maybe because of the dragons. We'll have to see how much dragons are in there. And the last book on my spring anticipated releases is The Love of My Afterlife by Kirsty Greenwood. So this also comes out on the 20th of June. This is a bit of a mix. It is technically fantasy romance, but it's going to be more of a contemporary read, and I definitely get that from like the vibe of the cover. I think it's going to be more of like the 7 Year Slip by Ashley Poston. I think it's going to appeal more to the contemporary masses, but it does have this fantasy element. So in this one, we are following our main character, Delphi. She has just died by choking on a burger. I think this book is meant to be very witty, by the way. I'm not just laughing because she's just died choking on a burger. It's the way it's kind of written. It is very tongue-in-cheek, very witty. And I do like that kind of writing, kind of like really good, actually. It's just writing that really appeals to me. So Delphi has just died choking on a microwavable burger. She has ended up in the afterlife, and she gets chatting to this chap who's also ended up there, and they exchange quite a few words, and she's falling for him. She thinks, you know, oh, he's cute, he's good looking. And then someone runs out saying there's been a massive mistake and this man was not meant to have died. So he gets sent back down to the world of the living, and she's like, oh, I was just falling for him. That's not very good timing. So they make a deal with her where I think she has like 7 days or 2 weeks or something. I can't remember the time period. A short period of time to go back to the land of the living and to basically see if she can get him to fall for her. That sounds really bad. So not necessarily to fall for her, but just to see if there's more there. So she has to see within this time period if there is anything more between them, and if so, maybe they can be reconnected in some way. But the issue is that when she goes back to the land of the living, he has no recollection of them having just met or what's happened to him. So she's almost got to start again and see if there's more there. And I think it's definitely with this one, I think it's going to be that kind of lighter read. I like that kind of witty tone, as I've already mentioned. So I do have this one as an E-arc. I have not got into it yet though, because I'm currently reading another E-arc that comes out before this. But I'm going to use the word again, excited to get into this one and to read it. And I think it actually might provide the kind of palette cleanser. I know a lot of people are using that word at the moment to describe their reading. Between all of the other books, I am in a little bit of a reading slump. I never thought I would say this. I'm finding my reading quite difficult at the moment. I've read a lot of heavy reads and some not so great reads, just average reads, and I really need something to pick me up out of this kind of slump and get me wanting to pick up a book and read it. And I actually think that this might be one of those books, so I might have to start reading it soon. So that is spring over. We've talked through 9 books today. I think it was 7 or 8 last week, and I'm going to use the word again. I'm so excited for a lot of these fantasy reads. I know a lot of people on my channel are BookBox subscribers because I do a lot of unboxings over here. So if you're interested, quite a few of these are in BookBoxes. So The Silence Factory is one of our BookBox reads. The Goddess of the River by Vaishnavi Patel is going to be in a BookBox, as is Moonstone, as is Evocation, as is of Jade and Dragons. So quite a few that I'm going to get into my hands very soon and be able to read if I've not read them on ARCs already. If you've got to this point in the video, I just want to say thank you so much for your constant support with me and my channel. It really does help. If you want more ways to support the channel, there's loads you can do that doesn't cost you anything. Firstly, like the video, that helps me so much. You do not even understand so much. So I just want to say thank you in advance if you have liked this video. Leaving a comment, even if it's just to say hi, hello, I'm here, nice to see you. If you've got nothing else to say about the books, just leave a comment, even if it is just an emoji. It's so much appreciated. The third one is to subscribe if you've not done so already. That's more specifically if you want to see more from me. Obviously, if you don't, then don't subscribe. That's completely your choice. And the last way is that if you are interested in any of these books and you want to purchase them, there are affiliate links down in the description. That means that you do not pay any extra, but I make a small commission off each sale, so that massively helps me out as well. Other than that, thank you so much for watching. Have a lovely rest of your day wherever you are, whatever you're up to, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.